Well, today I'm going to work on a camcorder, but this video is more of a test to see if I actually got my computer going. You see, I just went through some computer hell. My computer was crashing constantly. The last video I edited took me about 7 hours to get the stupid thing to go because I had to reboot it about 15 times. I spent about 6 hours a day working on this thing, updating drivers and fixing corrupted files on disk. So this will be an acid test, but we're going to fix a camcorder while we're doing that. Got this palmcoder given to me. It's missing a bunch of pieces, such as the magnifier for the eyepiece, which makes this thing kind of useless because the little screen there is so small that without that eyepiece, it's going to be pretty tough to see what you're doing. But as I say, this was given to me, and I have no idea if it works or not. I'm missing a bunch of accessories. I never got the DC cord to connect to the power supply. I got the power supply and the battery charger, but of course the batteries that came with this thing are certainly not going to hold a charge. I mean, the batteries are probably leaking as it is, and it's a generic battery of all things. So I don't expect that this battery is going to do anything other than flash. Okay, it actually made a noise. I always thought these were a joke, these cameras that use these little mini tapes, and I have no idea what's on this tape because this is a tape that also was given to me. I don't even know if I want to try to fix this thing that's broken, but let's just see whether this piece of junk actually works. I guess the battery is not any good. We'll power this thing up from a power supply, because that's the only way this thing's ever going to work, is with external power, if it even works, which it very well could. It could very well work. I don't know. Impatient people. I didn't get right back to them, so they're sending me another one. Well, that shows us what this is doing. Nothing. It's okay, now it sounds like it's loading the tape. I wonder if this thing actually works. Well, the camera appears to work, although the zoom lens doesn't move. I think the switch is kind of foobarred here. If I kind of play around with the switch on the top here, I can kind of get it to zoom out a bit. But it's certainly not, it's not zooming like it should. And it's probably the switch that's gone bad. But let's see if this thing will play back. I have no idea what's on this tape, so I may have to censor it. I don't know what it is. It could be somebody's home porn movie as far as I know. Or it may not be anything. Or it may be, looks like somebody's wedding, but it looks like the alignment was out. So is it the alignment on this camera that's out? Or is it the alignment on the tape? But definitely it's somebody's wedding that is not playing back. Now the question is it the tape that's bad, or is it the camera that's bad? A way to find that out is to take the tape out, and I can pop the tape into an adapter, which will let me plug it into a regular VHS machine, and that way I can determine whether the alignment on this is correct, or whether it's the camera that's out of whack. If it's the camera that's out of whack, maybe we'll try and fix it and make the camera play the tape back. If it's the tape that's bad, well, we can record some color bars or something onto a tape and give us a good recording that we can then use to align the camera, or say if the camera is correct. If the tape is correct and the camera is bad, we can use this to align the camera. But if the tape is bad itself, then the camera may be okay. We'll have to just do a test recording on this tape. This tape here, I think, was probably one that's already been transferred over, and it was just left behind. It may have been a tape that the alignment was out on, and it was transferred over to DVD, and the people just left the tape behind and said, you know, scrap the tape, which happens quite a bit, where you know, I'll transfer someone's tapes over for them, and they'll just say, we don't need the tape anymore, throw it out, because it was just sitting on the back of my bench here, and it's been sitting here for a couple of years. The fact that the label's been removed from it indicates that it's probably already been transferred. And that's exactly what I remember. This tape was brought to me years ago to do a recovery on because the alignment was out of whack on the camera that made the recording. I don't know whether it was this camera or not, because I've had this camera for a while too. But the tape itself, I had taken another machine and tweaked the alignment of a regular VHS machine to be able to play the tape back. And then I hung on to the tape because I figured I could use it to make a test tape, which is exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to put color bars on that tape in a regular VCR, and then we'll be able to take that tape and put it in here and see whether this camera actually works. And if not, we'll try to make it work. If the alignment, for example, is not correct on this, because this could very well have been the camera that made that recording, we'll try and make this one work. Not that it's really worth anything. In fact, it's worth nothing. But hey, for the fun of it, we'll take this thing apart and take a look at the, we'll tear it down, and we'll take a look at the guts and see if we can make it play back a tape. So let's start by removing these screws in the side here. We'll get into this camera. If you remember how nice the Sony cameras were inside, wait till you get a look inside these pieces of junk. First of all, everything's a lot bigger because it's dealing with a 1/2 inch tape. But just the construction of the Panasonic cameras were not that good. Like the Sonys were a dream to work on because they were well designed and well engineered and well put together. These ones here, by comparison, were cheap. And really the only reason I'm going to try and get this thing working is just so that I can say I've got a VHS-c camera in my collection. I mean, how many people have got a VHS-c camera now? Probably not too many. I think I got a full-size VHS camera sitting in my shop here somewhere. I should look at one of these days too. Okay, the front cover comes off like that, and there should be a connector I can unplug here, or not. I gotta pull the top off now. Screw in the back here. I'm taking this thing apart, not expecting it to ever have to go back together. Piece of sheet. Even has sheet in the name. Okay, we'll unplug this one, and we'll unplug that, and we'll unplug this connector, which seems like it was an afterthought, and that one. Okay, now the top cover is off, and this is the one that's got those switches on. So this switch might be kind of where the part of the problem is. Okay, now that I've got this removed, I can now undo this plug and this one back here to take the whole front off. So I'll undo this connector. Got to lift this one up. Undo that one, and undo this one here, and then this will lift off. Okay, we're getting there. One of the big problems with this camera, you can probably see this right now. I mean, this is a given. The dumb design of having the buttons on the lid that you open, as you can see, it's got this folded up, flat, flexible cable that every time you open and close the tape compartment, it can't turn it on though, can I? Because the switch is in the back here, which is off now. I gotta plug this in order to turn it on because the power switch is here. Again, you know, dumb design. Dumb design. So now when you're working on this thing, you've got the side piece hanging off there, just ready to break the connector. And these connectors did break pretty easy. Oh, come on. Okay, the eject switch is here. You can see what happens every time you open this up, right? Every time you open this up, this flex cable is going to bend. And you know what's going to happen to that eventually, right? It's going to break. Yeah, it was a kind of a silly design. And easy to break things when you were taking these things apart and putting them back together. Just going to kind of set the top on there right now just for this demo. But here's the little head drum, and if I get this out of the way, we can see the whole working mechanism. And I'll go bring that tape back in a minute, and we'll thread the tape up and see what it does. Caught it. Okay, we can get this out of the way. Now we can see the ridiculous mechanism on these things. So on these type of mechanisms, the tape is actually wrapped 270 degrees, something like that. And there's 4 video heads. Actually, this one's got 5 because it's got a flying erase head. But there are 4 heads. Because of the wrap, 270 degrees, the recording starts here and it ends over here. Right? Around there somewhere. 90 degrees is all that's not covered. So as the tape records, as the head spins, it obviously has to spin at a faster speed so that the relative head to tape speed remains the same. So these ones are running, I think it's 50% faster, something like that. So that in the same amount of time, in 1/60th of a second, instead of the head drum only having to make 180 degree or half a turn revolution, in this case it actually has to go all the way over to there in the same time frame. So it's 50% faster. And how this works, and we can use these solder masks here, little solder marks, just to get an idea. So your first head here, you can see the 4 heads on here. In this case there's 5. Here's the flying erase head here. And here's the first video head. First video head is here. As the drum rotates and the first video head makes its way all the way around over to here, the next field is being started by this head here, which is 90 degrees to the left or counterclockwise from the first head. Right, because here's the flying erase head. That's where we started. Flying erase, erase the track. Here's our first video track. Our second video track, our second field for the first frame, starts here. By the time that one gets over to here to the end of its frame, the head that's 90 degrees ahead of it is now ready to start field A of frame number 2. So then it turns around, gets over to here, and now the final head over here is going to start field B of frame number 2. So in a conventional VCR, your head makes a half a rotation per field, or one rotation for one frame. On this one, it makes, 1.5 rotations for one frame, or 2 fields, right? And it takes a total of 3 rotations of the head to record 2 frames. But because the head drum is smaller, the relative speed between the head and the tape remains the same. So the resulting video image that's recorded on the tape is compatible with a conventional VCR. And the same was true with the 8mm system, with the TR series that Sony made, that used much smaller head drum and the same technology. The 3/4 wrap, as it's called. Actually, the Sony went one beyond that. It was almost a 360-degree wrap, because 8mm, if you remember, has the PCM soundtrack area that was reserved, and certain machines had the PCM recording. So on a Sony machine, they wrapped the head. On a conventional size drum machine, they wrapped the head 210 degrees. I have to go back and check my notes, but it was more, because there was that extra area from 180 degrees to 210 where they could record time code and they could record the PCM audio. So on the TR series, the head drum is actually wrapped even more, but the video portion works out to the same. The video tracks are the same, laid out in the same angle as they were on a conventional machine. So let's go get that tape that now has color bars recorded on it. We'll put it into here, and we'll see if it will play back. I'm betting it's not going to play back, because I think this camera was the one that was messed up that wouldn't play that tape. And I recovered the tape, and they gave me the camera. And that was the end of that. I think that's where this camera came from. I get a lot of people just giving me a lot of electronics that they don't want. So if I can get this thing to work, then I don't know what I'll do with it. I'll put it up for sale, right? The only thing is I don't have the DC cord. If I had the DC cord to connect to between the power supply and the camera, I'd have a complete set, but I don't have the DC cord, and I think it's a special size plug that's on here. It's not a standard size plug. So getting that might be a challenge. I could be wrong. It could be readily available, but I won't be the one looking for it. Let me go and grab the tape, and we'll check the alignment out on this machine now. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is just open the cassette compartment up. We'll put the tape in, and you'll observe it thread. Well, I guess you won't, because this little cover is going to block half of it, but there's how the tape guides go in on this. And we'll see whether this plays. I seriously doubt that it's going to play properly, but we'll see. Play. And it doesn't. And I think the reason why is it looks like this one guide is not even all the way into place. I'm going to say that this camera definitely is the one that recorded that wedding tape, because I think this guide here is not all the way down. You see, it should be, I think, visible in that Should be down like that. Now let's just see whether the alignment is... I'm not getting a picture, I'm getting just nothing but snow right now. But we'll see whether the guides themselves... Okay, I'm starting to get a picture. I'll show you guys what I'm getting now. See, I'm starting to get something. But we're off by a mile still. I'll just try tweaking this guide a bit more, and even the other one. Now you might wonder why I'm not putting a scope on this. Well, that's because I don't know where the scope goes on this one. There's another guide up here too. Basically, with these VHS-c cameras, you put your faith in that they were going to load correctly when you put that tape in. Otherwise, you've got nothing. You see, the audio is recorded over here because the audio has to be a specific distance from the end of the video track. So that's why this extra guide is here, to pull the tape out of the way so that you can get the extra distance required for the audio to be recorded. Otherwise it won't be in sync. So the fact these things actually worked at all is quite a miracle, considering what they had to go through to make the smaller transport viable. I'm just going to eject this tape and reload it and see what happens. Whether that guide will go where it belongs. Still not going all the way down. This guide here is supposed to go all the way down here. You may have wondered why it's not loading correctly. It could be a number of reasons why it's not loading correctly. It might be the timing is out on some of the gears here, because there's multiple gears that turn. There's multiple cam gears that operate the main and the sub loading gear, because there's two gears, one that rotates one direction and one that rotates the other. So it could be a timing issue, although it is unloading correctly, so that it may not be that. It may be that the camera was dropped, which tended to happen to a lot of these things. Someone would drop the camera, it was bounced and it bent something. And that's more than likely why it's not loading the tape correctly. This guide here, is it this one or this one? This one here is not it's not going all the way into position. Gonna see which guide that actually is. Or is it? It's this one. This is the guide. Interesting. This guide here, this is the one that ends up going up here, and this guide over here is the one that goes all the way around. You can tell from the shape of the base. One of them's got a squared off end on the base and the other one's round. Watch when they load. See, the one with the squared off end went into here. Interesting. If we watch it now, we'll see that the guide is actually going into position correctly now. Okay, that tape guide now is going all the way down where it belongs. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's what was sticking before, was this guide was not going all the way down into position. Still not playing properly because I think we have a problem. It's not reading the control track. And that would probably be because that's why the sound is muting too. It's going in and out of lock. Picture's clear. Like the alignment looks good when it's reading the tracks, but it's hunting, trying to track up the tape. And it can't track the tape up because there seems to be a problem with the control track. There is tracking controls on this. No. Where were the tracking controls, or were there any on this thing? I don't think there were any. Now maybe that the tape is just not going over the control head properly, or it's just not reading it, which could be a problem in the servo circuit. But definitely it's not worth fixing this thing. Got the transport to thread properly. Yeah, I think it's a control track problem. If I play around with this guide here, listen to the tone, it'll stay on longer. I'm purposely not cutting out this part because I want you guys to see how long it actually took me to get this working, or how much time was actually spent. Camcorders are always fiddly, and you can fiddle fart around with them for hours. I hated camcorders because they're just so small. I mean, they're neat. A little VHS VCR, that small, you got to give it to them. Same with the 8mm cameras. I mean, just the engineering that went into these things, I'm surprised they even worked, especially with all the plastic in these ones. But yeah, they are very fiddly to get them working again, especially if they've been dropped. Interesting thing on this camera, it's not an alignment problem. My alignment's actually very good. I know that because I made a recording on this and I took it and played it in a VCR, and it plays fine. So we know that the alignment is good, and we know it's recording a control track. What it isn't doing is it is not playing back the control track, and that's why it's not tracking. It uses the control track for synchronization. So I don't know whether the head itself has got a problem, or whether it's probably something in the circuitry that detects the signal. But that's the problem on this, is it's got a problem with reading the control track. Now it appears to have a problem even loading the tape. And of course, I put the tape in again, and the bloody thing is playing it perfectly. What the hell? What happened there? I made a test recording on it, took the tape in to the house, put it into the adapter, played it. It played fine. I come back out here, load the tape back in the camera, and it's playing. Weird, huh? Let's rewind this back to the portion where I made the recording and see if it'll play back its own recording. So that is very, very strange. The recording should be here. There it is. It should be right there. And there's the recording I made. You see? So this stupid camera now works. Huh. That's pretty neat, huh? That's gonna has to get to where the erased part was done. And there's the reading the control track. I did that pretty damn good job of eyeballing that alignment, didn't I? Without a scope and without even it being able to play back, I eyeballed that thing just watching it breaking up. And I got that alignment pretty darn good, you know. I don't know if I could get it any better than that if I tried. I mean, it's pretty much spot on. I'm going to leave well enough alone and leave this thing where it is. It's working. It records and it plays. And that's really all that matters. It records and it plays. Do I have a use for this camera? Absolutely not. I have absolutely no use for a camera like this, and I don't have the power cord for it. But I'll keep an eye out for one, or for some connectors that can be made, because these batteries that were in the bag with it, Dynacharge, there's no way. This is a nickel cadmium battery. There's no way that that thing's ever going to take a charge to operate the camera. But I think at this point I can put this thing together. So we'll just eject the tape. And we'll put this thing together, and we'll close this off as another successful repair on a camcorder. An old camcorder from, I don't even know what year this is. Does it say? 1991. 1991 camcorder. Still works, and the capacitors are still good on this thing. That's the amazing part, is that the caps are not bad on this thing. You know, I expected that they were all going to be leaking, and it was going to be, you know, shot, but they're fine. Now, how does this thing go together? I keep forgetting how these things come apart. I think I have to have the cassette compartment out in order to put that lid on. You know what I haven't checked, and I'm not going to, is that zoom on the lens. It wasn't zooming properly, but I'm not too worried about that because the chances of this camera ever being used for recording anything again are slim to none. Nobody in their right mind is going to record anything on a VHS-c. I think I put the wrong screws in that one. The shorter screws go in the back here, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is the longer ones. There. I know if the screw's too long, the tape won't go in. There we go, that's fine. Okay, now I gotta figure out what the heck, how this thing goes back together. That goes in like that. And I got all these plugs that are gonna go back together. And then we can try the lens and see if it'll zoom. It seems like everybody's camera except for Sony's were a joke as far as the way that they put everything together. Sony's came apart nice and easy and they went back together nice and easy for generally. But everybody else's was kind of hit and miss. Okay, I think that's got that. And now this goes back on top. I'm also all pissed off again at YouTube for there's now another rash of bogus copyright claims being made by third parties for royalty-free content again. Seems like as soon as we get one company put to bed, that was that Rick Hart guy that was making all the claims. Now somebody else has sprung up and they're starting the same crap over again. It's like they start recording stuff with just tones on there. I guess that has to go on. This has to go in first before the nose piece goes on because it slides under a clip in the front here, and this has to go in here. Ah, these were terrible. How they ever got these things together at the factory, you know, I just... Sort of like that. And then a few screws to hold these things together. Where are the other screws? Over here. Let's see if it still works. I'll get the rest of the screws in when I'm done here, once I verify that it actually still works. And it works. goes. Okay, I think that's about does it for this one. Even the little viewfinder in the back works in black and white. As you can see, the viewfinder's working. So that's going to do it for this one. I just got a couple screws left to put in it, and then I can throw this thing in the garbage or try to find a home for it. Thanks for watching. We will catch you in the next one real soon. I got 2 more screws I gotta put on the side here. I think this one had a few screws missing from it too when I opened it up. But there it is, back together. It's recording and playing. Thanks for watching.